another Vital Moments podcast. I guess it's good morning for us, but depends on when people are listening. It could be afternoon,
It's a
evening.
good point. It's a good point.
I know some people that like listen to podcasts throughout the night when they can't sleep, so maybe you're listening to this while you're trying to fall asleep. I don't know.
Happy non-sleep moments as
Yeah.
we put you to sleep with our conversation.
Ooh, hopefully not. I
And
mean,
don't
this is
and don't listen while you're driving either, because that's
ooh,
oof,
it could get
ouch.
you. So some of them get me too hyped up, and then I drive too fast. So I have to be careful what kind of podcasts I listen to in the car.
Oh,
But
very
anyways,
good.
here we are, another week of Vital Moments podcast. We are in week 2 of our Vitality series that we've been coming at a different angle with looking at like the APES, fivefold ministry, however you want to say that. And so last week we covered shepherds, teachers, and this week we had our site pastor, David, who's part of the teaching team as well, cover what does it look like for the evangelist within the context of Vitalpoint Church as we understand it from the Bible. Now, we wanted David to rest today. He had a really big week and weekend, so everyone stuck with us. So anyways, I would love to hear what you loved about this talk.
Yeah, for me, it was a really good example and teaching around one of our core values, and that is being an outward focused church that creates space for people in their journey, right? And also equipping people to live out their faith in ways that will draw attention to who Jesus is. And I really like, he referenced Michael Frost's book, Surprise the World. And what I
Yeah.
really love, and he used 3 things: hospitality, generosity, and Christ-likeness, or maybe 4 in a spirit-led person.
Yeah.
What I really liked about this idea of evangelism is that it reduces the pressure that I've got to go door to door. I've got to be standing on the corner, street corner. I've got to be like the old school Billy Graham, type. Maybe some people don't even know who Billy Graham is, but it's one of those things that I really think he did a great job of simplifying the reality of Christ being known through the believer in the everyday interactions of generosity and hospitality. Those 2 I really like. I mean, I had this moment a few years ago, Amy. I was shoveling my neighbor's driveway, and I was just being a good neighbor, being a good human being, right? And I wanted to help my neighbor because they're so busy. They got 5 kids, and I wanted to shovel the driveway. And God kind of spoke to me in that moment, whereas like your serving attitude towards this family, this generosity of time, is a conduit for me to work. Lots of people do this for each other. They mow each other's lawns, or they shovel their driveways or hold doors. And that's just being nice. But there was this moment where I realized the action of generosity, of time and effort, is a pathway for God's glory to be known. And it was interesting because the neighbor, she got home in the middle of the night that night, and from work, and she was so happy to see the driveway done.
No doubt.
So for me, I think this message was a critical message to help normalize the expectations of this word evangelism, especially if it fits into vitality, as it fits into the Ephesians 4 passage. And because I think people are so afraid of it. And so I think I got to stop saying I think. He did a great job of normalizing sharing your faith.
He did do a great job of it. I think too, like to backtrack for a second, acknowledging again within our context and who we are as a church, a lot of people might not even be familiar with that word evangelism. For those who have like grown up in church and been around church for a long time, evangelism, like in discussion in my Connect group, at least yesterday, we do ours in the Sunday afternoon. It's just what works best for us. And there's a lot of negativity for those who have grown up in church, what that word means. But for someone brand new coming in the door, no church background, that word can be like, what are you even talking about? What does that mean? And so it's kind of that twofold definition that Dave did a really good job unpacking of, it's the public teaching declaration of God's word, but it's also just simply being a witness too.
Yeah.
I love that, like, idea of it. What does it look like to be a witness to just share, this is what I've experienced. I may not know all the ins and outs of things, but this is what I do know. It makes me think of that
Mm.
story with Jesus, how he heals the blind young man,
Mhm,
and the
mhm.
family's brought in and they have all these questions. How did this happen? What? He's like, listen, I don't know. This is what I do know. I couldn't see. Now I can see.
Yeah.
So like go to the
Yeah.
source and figure it out, right?
Yeah.
And I think we
Yeah.
underestimate just the power of our experience. Yeah, I might not know exactly all the words in the Bible to a new
Mm.
believer or someone who's just learning what it means to follow Jesus or exploring that, but they have this ability to go, listen, this is what I have experienced and this is what I do know. And that's evangelism too.
Yeah. Amy, you bring up an interesting point. The the lifetime follower of Jesus who grew up in the church likely has a harder time with the um, evangelistic believer. So not the gifted evangelist, but
Yeah,
I'm
so
talking
talk
about
to me
just the
about
gen.
the different.
Yeah, which you can unpack in a second. But it was, I think it's very natural for someone who's new to faith. They can't help themselves, right? It's
Mhm,
like, uh, a common person that you and I both know in Poplar Hill gives his life to Jesus. That afternoon, he's calling as many people as he can to tell them what
mhm.
has happened in his life. And this is, oh, I just thought of this again. When you think about someone's life who is
Yeah.
impacted by Jesus, being transformed by Jesus, and they're new in their faith, there is a natural invitation to the story of what God is doing. And
Mm,
we've seen this at Vital Point, is that oftentimes what happens for that new believer is that their friends can get caught up in the wake of their faith and are
yeah.
drawn in, right? And so I know that doesn't happen all the time, because I know that there's other stories of people coming to faith in Christ and they lost all their friends that they partied with and so on. But
Yeah.
particularly this grouping of people that you and I have connection with in Poplar Hill, it's like they're caught behind the wake of this guy's faith, and God's just moving and working in powerful ways. And
Mhm,
um, it's very natural for him. And yeah, it's just wonderful to watch, Amy. Like, it's
mhm.
almost as natural as, hey, I watched this great show on Netflix, or I watched this great, um, I saw this great movie, or went to this great restaurant. It's as natural as that, right? To share
Mhm,
it, right?
mhm. And I think like I love that point. It becomes natural when we've experienced it. We've experienced and really truly understand the change and the transformation that's happening as we've had an encounter with God
Mm,
that is powerful, right? And so I encourage people, like, if this is hard for you, lean in to experience God and ask to experience him in a brand new way where it catches in you and you can't help but share. I think of that
yeah,
analogy too, of like even like a great meal. We talked about this in our rally at Poplar Hill yesterday. You talk about your favorite meal and it's so easy to be like, oh, you got to experience your favorite meal. And then, sometimes it happens and then someone
yeah,
goes like we love to go down to our place in Florida and there's always a place we want to take everybody. And some people, it's not their jam. And we're jacked about it and they're like, it was okay. And I think there's a piece where as Christians, we have to be okay with people responding that way, because that helps takes
yeah,
the sting away a little bit of like, it doesn't change my experience. I still love this place. I still love this meal. And, I prayerfully hope that you will love it too one day, but it's okay if your
yeah,
first experience is meh. Who knows? You,
yeah,
you come back
yeah.
and try again. But yeah, I
Hmm.
think that is a really great way to help normalize all of this too.
Yeah,
Because, like you mentioned in Dave's talk, he talked about sort of that difference between the gifted believer, or gifted evangelist, and
yes,
the
yeah,
evangelistic believer, and that kind of difference there. And I think, too, I mean, you and I have had these conversations where you'll kind of share a conversation that happens, and I go, Ron, that's not normal that they just like opened up like that out of
yeah,
nowhere, right? Because there's a piece of that gifted evangelist. It is just a supernatural gift that opens up that space immediately. The Spirit enables you to ask the right questions, but also enables that person to just open up and overflow. And it's just this
hmm,
very natural thing where most people would fall under the evangelistic believer, where it's again that
yeah,
witness to, I've experienced this, a desire to share that. I'm investing in people with that, also love and care behind it and inviting them. into this. And so it's just not quite as an overflow, but it's something that just in our natural living and
Yeah.
relationships with others. And I just loved that distinction to help us understand it more.
Yeah. It's the questionable life, right?
Yeah.
Like, how do you live a questionable life that raises questions in the minds of those around you that want to know, like, why are
Hmm.
you so different? Like, when you're not engaged in the gossip in the lunchroom at
Hmm.
work, when you're not inclined to diminish or speak down about others that you in your neighborhood or your coworkers, or you're very positive and encouraging and uplifting, and those are things that draw attention, because when you think about the world in which we live in, there's such a negativity and such harshness and rage, that we as followers of Jesus can live a way that's contrary to the things of this world. And doing so, you may not even have to say much. You may not even have to open doors much in the sense of bringing it up, because people will see. It's like the good works reveal the glory of God, right? And in our faith, and if you live that questionable life, then there's opportunities that will present, and also praying for them too.
Hmm.
I was in Forest yesterday, which obviously
Yeah.
recording on Monday. I was in Forest, and I wrapped up a little bit different in that I encourage the believers in the room to be thinking and praying, or be thinking about a name that God's going to give them that they're going to pray for, and what would it look like to be praying for that one person. Not that you're going to bust into Monday morning with your elbows up, but I got to tell you about Jesus. No, just start praying and let
Yeah.
God open that door, right?
Hmm.
Such a
Yeah, I think
critical piece to it.
we can never underestimate what the power of that intentionality in prayer will do
Hmm.
in softening and preparing someone's heart to be able to enter into that space. I think too even shifts our heart to become more intentional with those people in our lives.
Yeah, yeah. And the reason why we wanted to do Vitality a bit different this year with
Hmm.
the Ephesians 4, when I think about the gifted evangelist and the evangelist believer, is that what you call
Yep.
it? I should,
Yeah.
yeah. Evangelistic believer, that's it is.
Yeah.
They're, excuse me, a church like Vital Point, and why this is such a key piece, especially with an invite culture, a value of invitation to church. I have to cough. I don't know if our producer can mute. Hang on one second.
If
Okay.
I talk for a second.
Yeah, I just muted. I don't know if producer Josh can do that. Um, what is so incredible, and you and I talked about this off camera, off recording, is that when you're in an environment like Vital Point Church, you can have confidence to invite your friends to church. And so there's a
Mhm.
partnership between your living questionable life and invitation culture to a church like Vital Point.
Yeah.
Because we teach, preach, talk, lead in a way, always keeping that first time person in mind who's
Right.
exploring. So I know of different people from other environments, other faith communities that actually bring people to Vital Point, and because there's a confidence level in our
Mhm.
community that yeah, there's elements of weird for sure because it's church, but there's also a real intentionality of keeping that first time person in mind who's not a follower of Jesus yet. So there's a confidence that you can sit in the room with a neighbor and not be embarrassed or not be ashamed, but be very excited about what they're going to experience. And
Mm.
so, in a context like Vital Point Church and the Vitality series, this um, evangelistic believer posture for those who are our core believers in our church. This is an important part of the series, and
Mm.
that's what I love about this. And when I invite my friends from the gym, I have every bit of confidence, Amy, every bit of confidence that they are going to possibly encounter the presence of God in our gathering,
Mm. Yeah.
and that will not be ashamed of the power of what God is doing in our gatherings. And that's the beauty of our context. Um, that by God's grace we've been able to create. So
Hmm. Yeah, I think it's so, I mean, it's such a gift to me, but when people, again, like I'm Poplar Hill focused with my role, and my family belongs to that community. I love the excitement that someone comes up to me and is like, "So I brought my so and so today, and like, we'd
yeah,
love for you to meet them, or will you go say hi to them?" kind of thing. Because they just know that is our heartbeat, is to welcome all kinds of people, regardless
yeah,
of your background, what you even came dressed in, and all that stuff. So I think that is something too that I think people can't underestimate. Before we wrap up, though, I do want to say we kind of tied a nice bow on this, that in just a couple weeks, we are going to be launching Alpha. So, for so
yeah.
many of our listeners, our community members, or people that are listening that are just like checking out Vital Point from the sidelines, this is
Hmm.
a really, really, really great opportunity for you to come with all questions. Nothing is off the table in these spaces. You're welcome to challenge it any way you want to, and just like opening up that space to explore, what does this really look like? What is church all about? What
Yeah.
is, who is Jesus? Why did he do these things that he did? And ask some of the hard life questions. Anything you want to speak into that, in knowing that's coming up?
Y- Yeah, Alpha at all four sites launching the same week.
Yeah,
Forest just landed a midweek location. They just nailed that down, got the contract
so
last week. All four locations, Amy. And this is a wonderful opportunity to invite friends to discover and explore through video, through meal, through discussion,
good.
the
Hmm.
power of the Christian faith. And for us as a church, it's not just something that we do, but it's an anchor in our church. And it is part of the evangelistic nature of our church. So
Yep.
I agree on this. Sign up, be part of it. Go to the website, vitalpointchurch.com, go to Alpha, sign up. What site you want to be attending, and if you are they all on the same night, Amy?
I believe so. I believe they're all Wednesday night, if Tony was able to enforce make Wednesday night happen.
Yeah, I think his music rehearsals Wednesday night. So maybe it's Thursday nights and four.
Okay,
So
there we
so
go.
just
Thursday.
look at the different nights, because if you're in a site that you can't make that night work, go to another site and be part
Totally.
of that alpha. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's so great. It's so easy.
Yeah.
I mean, you have a meal together, and it's wild to me how every time I do an alpha, the first night is kind of awkward, getting to know each other.
Yeah.
And the last night, everyone's like, we don't want this to end. There's tears sometimes. Like, it's
Yeah.
such a great experience. So if you're on the fence about that, this is your sign. Go sign up,
Go sign
vitalpointchurch.com.
up.
Yeah.
And what else
Okay.
is happening in the month of September? September 29th, 2024,
It's
the 10th
crazy.
anniversary.
10 years, whole decade
Crazy.
of, yeah, what God has been doing through Vital Point. What a journey. I mean, I think
Yeah.
I've only been around for maybe half of that, but it's pretty good half, if I have to say.
Wow. You've been here for 5 years. I didn't
Almost,
realize that.
almost, not
Almost
quite.
5 years. Good.
Anyways, we'll figure that out later. Do the math on that. But
Yeah.
anyways, thank you so much, Ron. And I hope that this conversation has encouraged you, whether you're
Mm.
exploring in faith and trying to figure that out for yourself, or whether you have been a follower of Jesus for a little bit. Never underestimate the power of your witness and your testimony, what God has done in your life, and how he may want to use that with the people around you. So keep on keeping on.
All right.
All right.
Enjoy.
Thanks so much. Have a great day, guys.